Good morning. The Cyber Committee meets this morning to receive testimony from DoD cybersecurity leaders on what the department is doing to substantially improve the cybersecurity at the enterprise level across the department and the defense industrial base. Our witnesses today are the Honorable John Sherman, the Chief Information Officer of the Department of Defense, and Lieutenant General Robert Skinner, who is dual-hatted as the Director of the Defense Information Systems Agency and the Commander of the Joint Force Headquarters responsible for operating and defending the DoD Information Network, known as DODIN. We welcome our witnesses in the committee, and thank you for being here, and all the men and women that you represent in the services. Thank you so much. As we see every day in Putin's illegal war against Ukraine, cyber attacks are no longer a novel tactic in warfare. They are a primary tool for destabilizing both offenses and defenses on the battlefield and in advance of pre-planned attacks. This is precisely why we are holding this hearing this morning, to ensure that our defensive capabilities and awareness on our networks are up to the same standard as our offensive cyber capabilities. Just as important as our internal defenses are the defenses and standards that protect our industrial-based partners and the critical infrastructure and supports DoD's mobilization efforts. In addition to these two major concepts of internal and external defense, we hope to receive updates from our witnesses on the major initiatives that they've undertaken and participate, and these include the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program, the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, the Locked Shield Cyber Defense Exercise, the so-called Zero Trust Cybersecurity Architectural Model, the perimeter defense system deployed at the gateways that connect DoD's internal networks to the global internet, the decision to acquire a bundled set of cybersecurity tools and applications for the DoD enterprise from Microsoft, and the revitalization of the cyber expected services as a means to improve the cyber workforce across the department. Both the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program and the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center are crucial guidelines and resources for our private industry partners. I would ask Mr. Sherman to summarize the results of the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Reviews Deputy Secretary Hicks completed last February to explain how the new direction will relieve the cost and implementation burden on many small businesses, as well as provide an update on the rulemaking process underway for the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. And while I'm aware that Cybersecurity Collaboration Center is a national security agency-led effort, I hope both of you are able to share how you interact with the program to protect our industrial-based partners. Just as important as these programs and resources are, we must adequately train in the whole of government manner to respond to cyber attacks in a red team versus blue team scenario. I would like our witnesses to expand on the importance of the Locked Shield Cyber Defense Exercise, which pits teams of international allies up against NATO's experts at the Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Estonia to simulate these attacks on critical infrastructure across an entire week. I will also proudly note this exercise is coordinated and implemented annually by our expert personnel within the West Virginia National Guard's Army Interagency Training and Education Center in Morgantown, West Virginia. The next exercise is scheduled to take place in April, and if any members or our staff would like to attend, my office would be happy to coordinate that effort. Additionally, the new Zero Trust security paradigm calls for re-engineering our networks and security practices on the assumption that our networks have already been penetrated by adversaries, requiring that we constantly watch the behavior and validate the identity and access privileges of all users and devices on the network. NSA and DISA have developed a Zero Trust reference architecture for the department, which will require a lot of cooperation from the military departments and defense agencies to implement these changes consistently across the whole of the DoD. Cooperation, which historically has been notably absent. Turning to DoD's perimeter defense capabilities, I would note that while the shift to the Zero Trust security paradigm reduces the importance and reliance on the castle wall mentality of cyber defense, it does not eliminate the requirements for automated systems that can detect and block most cyber threats at high speed and high volume at the major gateways and connect DoD's network to the global internet. It is therefore of concern to us to hear reports that NSA plans to cease support for the system currently performing this task before the department has developed and tested a replacement. Congress added funds to the DoD budget in fiscal year 2023 to begin operations for a modern replacement, while conducting a demonstration to prove that the new system can function as planned. We will ask our witnesses to explain how we got in this situation and whether they feel confident that the solution at hand will be equal to the task. Next, I would like to congratulate Mr. Sherman and his predecessor, Dan Deasy, for breathing new life into the Cyber Expected Service Program, and was designed by Congress to provide flexible hiring, promotion, and pay authorities for the DoD to manage its civilian personnel engaged in cyber-related work roles, and we hope it's working. I would ask Mr. Sherman to explain how this program is now working and how we can help him to improve the system even further. Finally, I would note the DoD recently completed a posture review of the cyber mission and an update of the department's cyber strategy. I would ask our witnesses to summarize the conclusion of the posture review and indicate how that review and the revised strategy will drive changes in the department. I turn now to my friend Senator Rounds for his remarks.
Thank you, Senator Manchin. Most certainly appreciate the opportunity to participate in this, our first Cybersecurity Subcommittee hearing of the 118th Congress. I'd also like to thank our witnesses for appearing at today's hearing and for their service to our country. The Department of Defense Information Network, also known as the DoD, is a global conglomeration of thousands of information systems and networks that enable military operations across all warfighting domains. Millions of DoD military and civilian personnel rely upon the DoD to share intelligence and access information capabilities that are critical to the national security of the United States. As the information infrastructure underpinning all DoD missions, the DoD remains a top target for cyber attacks. Recent threat intelligence reports confirm that cyber threats from nation states and their surrogates will remain acute, and that cyber criminals will expand their cyber operations against the United States to steal information, conduct influence operations, and destroy our critical infrastructure. This should serve as a stark reminder that our near-peer adversaries and competitors are intensifying their attempts to exploit any vulnerabilities within the DoD to gain strategic military advantage and compromise the integrity and effectiveness of this capability for future missions. Today's hearing is an opportunity to discuss ongoing efforts to strengthen the cybersecurity of the DoD across the enterprise, particularly as malicious cyber activities grow in number and sophistication. To deter and defend against threats in the cyber environment, I welcome the implementation of the Zero Trust architecture to help increase the visibility into network systems and reduce cyber risks. I look forward to discussing how the principles that embody Zero Trust framework, such as identity, credential, and access management, are enhancing the department's ability to identify vulnerabilities, mitigate threats, and strengthen the DoD's cyber posture. Last year, this subcommittee learned about the promise and lethality of artificial intelligence and automated applications in the cyber domain. I hope our witnesses will discuss how the continued development of AI capabilities are informing our cybersecurity strategy and how we are preparing to defend the DoD from our AI-capable adversaries. I also hope witnesses will address how AI and automated applications are being employed to monitor the threat environment, prioritize cyber risks, and mitigate vulnerabilities throughout this complex network of information systems. Also critical to enhancing the security of the DoD is strengthening the supply chain security of the defense industrial base, which provides essential components to the functionality of the DoD. I would appreciate the witnesses sharing their thoughts on how acquisition policies and strategies are keeping pace with the evolving cyber threat while promoting innovation and open competition. Of course, efforts to recruit and retain a pipeline of skilled cyber operators to manage the DoD is foundational to its enduring security. I look forward to the witnesses discussing their efforts in this important area. Clearly, there is much to discuss today. Thank you again to our witnesses for appearing. Senator Manchin.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Now I'm going to turn to the witnesses for your opening statements. Mr. Sherman.
Good morning, Chairman Manchin, Ranking Member Rounds, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I'm honored to have the chance to testify before you today on what we're doing in the Department of Defense to modernize our technology and protect our networks and data in an increasingly complex cyber environment. I'm privileged to appear today with Lieutenant General Bob Skinner, who both heads the Defense Information Systems Agency and serves as commander of the Joint Force Headquarters Department of Defense Information Network. We work together every day to ensure the DoD enterprise is ready for both today and tomorrow's missions, especially those that might involve our pacing challenge of the People's Republic of China. My job as DoD Chief Information Officer is to set the overall strategies, conduct oversight, promulgate policies, and lead governance. And Lieutenant General Skinner's role is to lead and ensure the operational and technical execution. Our teaming on this point is hard to overestimate. Given this close partnership, you will hear today how our work dovetails on every aspect of our modernization efforts. We have made great strides to posture the department for peer and near-peer competitors. Notably, our teams work together, pages are sticking, work together toward the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability contract in December. At last, the department has access to enterprise cloud capabilities from 4 world-class U.S. vendors at all 3 security classification levels, from the continental United States to the tactical edge, which can mean an island in the Western Pacific, key terrain in Eastern Europe, or even a ship at sea. This enterprise cloud is critical for joint all-domain command and control, the development of cutting-edge artificial intelligence and machine learning initiatives, software modernization, and strengthened cybersecurity. And it is this emphasis on cybersecurity that also drives so much of what we do as we shift away from dated, perimeter-based approaches to a new paradigm, as noted, called Zero Trust, which is predicated on the assumption that an adversary might already be on our network, and we must prevent them from moving laterally and gaining access to our most critical data. In October, we released a flagship strategy on Zero Trust, which has become a North Star document for not only the Department of Defense, but indeed other parts of the federal government. And Lieutenant General Skinner and his team are providing key capabilities for this new approach through an effort they call Project Thunderdome. We have committed to implementing Zero Trust across the DoD by 2027, which is an ambitious yet critical milestone given the geopolitical threats we face. These modern threats demand that we maintain a relentless focus on eliminating technical debt. All of our systems, be they for weapons, enterprise IT, command and control, business systems, or defense-critical infrastructure, must be equipped with the most modern cyber defenses that can stand up to savvy and determined state and non-state actors. As we've seen in Ukraine, today's battlefields are increasingly digital and connected, with all the opportunities and vulnerabilities that environment presents. Nation-state challengers will present threats like we've not seen since the Cold War, if not more severe, and we must ensure all our systems, networks, and data are ready. This includes working closely with our defense industrial base, which remains a target for cyber exploitation and attack. We must ensure that companies and other entities handling sensitive information are doing so properly and accountably, albeit with an approach that does not present overly cumbersome or stifling requirements, especially to small and medium businesses. Additionally, and most importantly, we never forget that the best technology in the world means nothing without a trained, motivated, and diverse workforce. We recently released a cyber workforce strategy that will continue to drive us to new and more effective approaches to how we identify, recruit, retain, and upskill our cyber and digital personnel, all the while emphasizing our drive to have a workforce that might not be seeking a 30-year government career and which looks like America. We are determined to get this right, and we know that our nation's talent and innovation is something that our authoritarian competitors will never be able to match. Finally, I wish to thank this subcommittee for your strong and continued support, which has been critical to all of our modernization efforts, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now to General Skinner.
Good morning, Chairman Manchin, Ranking Member Rounds, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I am honored to represent the approximately 19,000 personnel of the Defense Information Systems Agency and the Joint Force Headquarters Department of Defense Information Networks. I'm also honored to sit alongside one of my 2 bosses and key ally in the campaign to modernize, secure, and defend the department's networks, systems, and data, the Honorable John Sherman. The tight relationship between him and my other boss, General Paul Nakasone, is critical in driving the department to unparalleled cybersecurity heights. Every day that we come to work, we are focused on ensuring the Joint Force is postured, ready to compete, and have the velocity of action to win against our pacing challenge, the People's Republic of China, as well as any other nation or group that desires to harm us or our allies. Through that lens, we continue to leverage lessons learned from the conflict in Ukraine, global cyber events, and the great work of our intelligence professionals to strengthen our digital technologies, the agility of our maneuver forces, and the partnerships with allies, industry, research, and academia. Driven by this focus, we have made great strides along many fronts over the last year. In December, we awarded the new Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability Contract, which will provide us with enterprise cloud capability at all 3 security classification levels, from the continental United States to the tactical edge. We just awarded the first task order last week, and many others are working through the process. Additionally, we've initiated pilots to enable outside the continental United States cloud access, leveraging both a commercial as well as government solutions inside our overseas data centers. To help facilitate the rapid adoption of cloud, we've deployed several accelerators which streamline the cloud adoption process from a normal 45-day timeline to within hours or minutes. This is helping to accelerate our pace to the cloud to improve our overall user experience while also increasing our cybersecurity. As Honorable Sherman highlighted, we've made great strides on our Zero Trust journey. As DoD released the Zero Trust strategy, we had already started our Thunderdome initiative, which brings modern and commercial Zero Trust technologies to the department. We recently completed our successful prototype and are working with Honorable Sherman's team on the acquisition strategy and expansion of these capabilities across the enterprise. As we combine Thunderdome with our endpoint security strategy, Comply to Connect capabilities, and a host of others, we are on pace to meet the department's aggressive Zero Trust milestones. A foundational element of Zero Trust is identity, credential, and access management, which provides the ability to accurately identify that a user is actually who they say they are and limits access to only those assets that they have been authorized to use. Our enterprise capabilities are fully operational and already supporting 200+ unclassified applications while delivering new capabilities monthly. We are also continuing to work with our mission partners to ensure federation and interoperability at all levels. A final area to highlight are the initiatives we've undertaken to strengthen our command and control capabilities. We've made significant investment in nuclear command and control communications, continuity of operations, and special access program improvements. Just last week, we decommissioned our legacy special access network at over 70 global sites. These are just a few of the examples that our innovative spirit is tackling our toughest challenges and providing the department and the warfighter readiness advantages. While we've made significant strides, our work is not done. Our success will ultimately come down to our people and partnerships. As the department has released a new cyber workforce strategy, we have also released our Workforce 2025 initiative. We've laid out a plan to aggressively and creatively recruit in places we've not recruited previously. We will personally and professionally develop our next generation forces and find innovative ways to retain the top-notch talent. We will continue to foster a culture of diverse and critical thinking, continuous improvement, and accountability. We will also not be successful without increased partnerships. Thanks to your support, we are in the middle of planning Exercise Locked Shields, which is a multinational cybersecurity exercise to share best practices and improve daily connectivity with our key allies. Finally, our overall readiness, increased resilience, and warfighter success relies on the strong support that this subcommittee has provided for many years. I am grateful for your support and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, and both of you, for your opening statements. And now we'll start with our questions. I'll begin and go right over to Senator Mike Rounds. First, General Skinner, as I mentioned in my opening statement, we have to train for scenarios where we're preparing for across the whole of our federal government in coordination with state, local, and industry partners. That's why I provided $2 million in appropriations last year for this exercise to ensure that we have the infrastructure, manpower, to not only continue to participate, but also to win in these exercises. You might want to comment on that, how we've been able to fare. But I've been impressed with Lockheed Shield's exercise for this very purpose. But has the exercise been meeting your expectations or what you thought it could be?
Senator, the exercise is definitely meeting our expectations. The way we really sharpen our swords and sharpen our ability and our tactics, techniques, and procedures is through exercises like this. Not only with our guard forces that are a key part of our overall posture, but also with our allies and partners. The best way to learn is to learn through these type of exercises and these type of capabilities, which is really very realistic scenarios to really sharpen our swords, as I mentioned, and also make sure that our teams are working together, because as we look at potential conflict and/or crisis, we're not going to do that alone. And so having our allies and partners next to us and having our guards personnel as part of that overall team is very
Let me
important.
ask you this, how can we do a better job of coordinating these participations across all lines of government, as far as what we're responsible for, and the private sector, to bring them in too?
Senator, I think working through CISA and working through them to get down to the state and local levels, I think is a key area that we can continue to leverage to get more participation.
Can we do it with what we have now? Is it going to take more? Is it going to take more finances, or do we have the ability to be flexible enough to get that done now under the current scenario?
Senator, I think there's a lot of flexibility, and we will continue to leverage the things that you have given us to.
We want you to make sure that you move as fast as you can and get as quickly as far as the results that we're going to be needing there to be prepared. Mr. Sherman, I'm sure that you're aware of the practical implementation of the artificial intelligence, probably more than most. It's a top priority for Ranking Member Rounds and myself. We've been speaking about that and learning a lot more about that. I'm saving the majority of my questions on this topic for our next hearing, focusing solely on AI. And there's no doubt the benefits of AI could bring to both yours and General Skinner's job in the department, I think, is coming very rapidly. My question would be, what tangible AI application do you believe has been most successful? Which one?
Sir, if I had to judge, and our Chief Digital and AI Officer is truly our lead. I empower him through what we're doing on cloud, cybersecurity, and transport. But one I'll take out or highlight here is what we've done on preventative maintenance on helicopters, for example, using AI out at the tactical edge there to help our special operators on Black Hawk helicopter maintenance using AI. And that's but one of many examples, Senator. But as a former Army officer, I'm pretty impressed with that one, and not doing preventative maintenance checks and services like we've done in the 1990s or somewhere earlier, but using AI to allow our maintainers to get ahead of what they need to do to keep our helicopters flying.
You have a metric as far as savings and using AI on that?
Sir, I'd have to take that for the record, but I know it has been well used by Special Operations
If you can let us
Command.
know the savings, and we can show that we can be moving AI in many other arenas other than just that, would be very, very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Also, how can we do a better job on the committee and on appropriations, which I'm also a member of, to organize DOD's wealth of data and put it to use with AI? Are you getting all the input you need?
Yes, sir, we're getting the input, and as my colleague, Dr. Martell, the CDAO, has noted, this is where the pick and shovel work comes in for AI, is organizing our data, exposing it, creating APIs or application product interfaces where we can get to that data where it rests, not trying to bring it all together in one place. And very importantly, sir, you noted in your opening remarks about zero trust is really about protecting our data, which is what we're really doing here. It's not just protecting the systems, but making sure that data is secure so we can have accurate algorithms for all the use cases we'll need, sir.
I have further questions, but I'll turn to Senator Rounds now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin just with General Skinner. How is the department measuring its progress to secure the DODN? And I guess what I'm really asking is what metrics are being used by the department to assess the strength or weaknesses within the DODN's cyber posture?
Senator, we have a host of metrics that we're using on a day-to-day basis. To give you just a couple of examples, we have command cyber readiness inspections that go out and assess a base post camper station's ability to perform their cybersecurity mission, and we actually give them a grade at each of those, and then we wrap all those up to look at a holistic look at the department. At our boundaries and our perimeter, we are using artificial intelligence to determine where we have potential malware and zero-day malware. And as we continue to highlight those, we're tracking how much of that is actually occurring. We're working with the Defense Cybercrime Center, and they're using white hackers to test our boundary, and we're treating that as part of our metrics. And then the final area I would offer is we're scanning on a day-to-day basis the vulnerabilities of our front doors, and we're loading that into our performance metrics to see what the trends are and where the artificial intelligence and our perimeter defenses are working.
Leads me right in my next question. Once again, for General Skinner, I understand that the NSA is planning to phase out a system that contributes to the security of the DODN's perimeter defenses. How is DISA preparing to defend the DODN's perimeter defenses if or when the NSA cybersecurity systems are retired?
Senator, we have an amazing relationship with the National Security Agency, and we continue to partner at the perimeter defense to make sure that we're working together in protecting and securing. As the Joint Force Headquarters Dothan has stood up, and as Cyber Command has stood up, we continue to evaluate the things that NSA is doing and the things that the department is doing and where it actually belongs. And we have conditions-based approach as we move capabilities from the NSA to the Department of Defense. And one of the things that I want to thank you for is we have a pilot ongoing for full packet inspection of our boundary. We just started that pilot. We put it on contract in March, and within the next 6 months, we're going to determine if the capability meets what the marketing says, as well as is it scalable. And that's going to be another addition to the capabilities that we have at our boundary.
So you do have a plan in place so that as the NSA product is removed, you have other products to replace them in a timely fashion without any holes in the coverages?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sherman, some of the services are piloting bring your own device programs, which allow service members to connect their personal IT devices to the Dothan. How is the department confirming harmful applications and malware from personal devices are not inadvertently being introduced to the Dothan?
Sir, those bring your own approved device pilots that are going on across all the military services in the National Guard Bureau, we assess this through our Chief Information Security Officer and also working with General Skinner at the Joint Force Headquarters Dothan and the service cyber elements to make sure we're monitoring each of these pilots carefully. And right now, all these under exceptions for policy, given their pilots right now, as we assess the different offerings from Hypori, from Microsoft and others on what may work best. But watching this closely, and as we allow other capabilities, for example, allowing documents and so on to be worked on there, allowing mission use, but also not opening the door where there could be some sort of malicious capability or something else to come into the Dothan through the BYOD capability. So we're rigorously watching this through our CISO Council, service cyber elements, and others to make sure that these pilot programs, which are pretty constrained right now, still in the thousands of people, but not all across the services, that as we make decisions on how we're going to scale this out, and we know, for example, it's very important for the National Guard Bureau on a number of these things. How can we do this to be mission effective but cyber safe, sir?
Okay. General Skinner, I understand that there is a significant amount of automation within DISA's ecosystem, and you've alluded to that already. How are those capabilities being extended across the Dothan enterprise? How are you working it through? Is it a time frame issue? Is it a package by package? Is it what's the sequence?
Yes, sir. As we develop these capabilities, we either put them in a library for others to be able to access them, or we put it on a SharePoint site, but we enable it, and we have a catalog of these different capabilities that any organization can leverage. As an example, we have a bunch of templates that we use as infrastructure, as code, that enables individuals to get to the cloud faster, and those templates are available to anyone to use, which increases their time to get to the cloud and improve their security and performance.
Thank you, sir. My time has expired.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Budd.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you all both for being here. It's great to meet you all earlier. Appreciate your work and your service. So I'm interested in DISA Thunderdome prototype, the pilot program that recently concluded. Can you give me, General Skinner, an update on that and let me know if it met all original requirements?
Senator, yes, it met all the original requirements. Okay. We call that prototype a success, and we're working with Honorable Sherman's team on the acquisition strategy to expand this to the enterprise.
Could you, in this setting, share kind of top line what those original requirements were?
Yes, the original requirements were, as we look at the Zero Trust, the 7 pillars of Zero Trust, okay, there were 3 or 4 of those pillars that we want to make sure that we were meeting from both from an identity standpoint, as well as the capabilities that you have at the perimeter. I'll say the new perimeter as we continue to change the boundary as the Zero Trust principles. Do we have the right segmentation and the ability to segment so that if, just as in a house, if a burglar's in your house, part of the Zero Trust methodology is that you limit them to go from room to room, and to be able to micro-segment that was part of the requirements.
Thank you. How quickly can that prototype be scaled beyond DISA?
Senator, I'm hoping within months. As we work through the acquisition process and we work through, but we have about 1,600 individuals who are part of the pilot. And as soon as we get through the acquisition strategy, working with our vendors and the commercial companies, we want to scale fast.
Okay. Does the fiscal year 24 budget, does it provide DISA enough resources to do the scaling that you hope to do?
Yes, sir. Within the department, Zero Trust is a significant investment that the department is making in the fiscal year 24 budget.
Okay. Could you tell the committee an idea of the total attack surface across the DoD information network? And is DISA assessing commercial capabilities to actively secure access points?
Senator, as I talk in other open forums, the Department of Defense Information Network attack surface is the third largest in the world, behind the United States and China when you talk about address space. And so it is a significant place, a significant sphere. We are continually upgrading our abilities and capabilities at the boundary to protect and secure, as well as continually scanning the boundary from the outside to make sure that what an adversary may see is what we'll see before them, and we can shore that up.
You mentioned China. There's others adversaries out there. What's your assessment of the current level of effort our adversaries have devoted to penetrating defense industrial base networks?
Senator, I think their effort is very high. Some of them see the defense industrial base as a soft underbelly, and that's why our work with CMMC 2.0 and our work day-to-day with our defense industrial base partners is critical moving forward, because that's where the adversary is really targeting.
And when they target those networks, what do you see as their aim? Is it intellectual property? Is it other purposes? What do you usually see?
Senator, I think, as you said, I think it's intellectual property, but also I think they're looking for a way to go upstream if there's any connection between that defense industrial base and the Department of Defense. They're looking for an upstream way also.
Thank you. What additional risk management and oversight measures might be needed to improve information security for the department and for those private partners that we just talked about, and particularly the smaller businesses that are part of the network?
Sir, I think our continuing partnership as we work with them to understand the threat vector and what their security posture is, I think is first and foremost, because in order to protect, you have to understand. And so the ability for them to sense and see what their environment is, I think, is the most important thing that we can continue to do as a partner.
Very good. Thank you both. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great to be on this subcommittee.
Good to have you.
Mr. Sherman, I know that you've got some connections with previously at NGA, and St. Louis, of course, is the home of the NGA West. We're very proud of that. And Lieutenant General Skinner, Park University, right? So anyway, some connections there. I wanted to ask just a couple of questions. One, we've been talking a lot about the rising or pacing threat of China, and it seems pretty obvious that one of the potential conflict could certainly happen in cyber. That's maybe the most likely, right? And we've got what you all are doing. We've got assets in the United States that control water supply, energy. How do you guys approach this? Because you wouldn't want to have a situation where you're looking backwards and say everybody's siloed off, because if something were going to happen and affect how the American people view something, I know when there's a prediction of 3 inches of snow in St. Louis, there's like a bread line at the grocery store, right? So we need to be ready for this. How would you guys assess where we're at with that kind of cooperation and coordination with the private sector?
So there's the defense industrial base piece we were chatting about earlier, but to your point, sir, if the PRC or another nation, state actor were to attack us holistically, our coordination with the Department of Homeland Security and CISA under Jen Easterly, with whom we work closely, to make sure there's no seams. As we look at things like defense critical infrastructure, which provides the support on our bases, installations, and posts, as you mentioned, for water, power, and so on, but many of those things are off our installations in the local cities, towns, counties, and making sure as we work with DHS that if there were to be any cyber attacks or anything like that through the governance that DHS has, that we're working seamlessly. And we do this quite a bit. And we work through, for example, DoD policy as an interlocutor with DHS. So in working with Cyber Command and with General Skinner's JFHQ Doden hat on, we work to make sure there's few seams as possible on this, and realizing the Chinese or anyone else are not going to see boundaries. They're going to come at us as a nation, and making sure that we're able to make sure we can flow forces as necessary to the West Coast. Our installations aren't brought down. We can have all the data we need, and so we do look at this pretty holistically, sir.
Senator, I would add, my previous position as Indo-PACOM J6, I was acutely aware of the commercial power, commercial water, and the effects that that would have on our ability to perform our mission. And so we worked hand in hand with, as Honorable Sherman said, with CISA, and making sure, as an example, we have day-to-day discussions from a Joint Force Headquarters DODN standpoint and CISA, sharing lessons learned, seeing what threats that they're seeing, what threats that we're seeing, so we're all on the same page and understanding, because every base post camper station relies on the commercial sector to provide critical capabilities, because from a cyber domain standpoint, you can't have cyber without power. And that is a critical portion that we are hand in hand in making sure that we all have a good understanding, not only of the threat, but what's their security posture, because they have to be just as cyber secure as we are.
And obviously on cyber, like so much of what we need to do to prepare, innovation plays a very, very important role. How comfortable are both of you with the breadth or diversity of of those contractors that are going to provide sort of next generation technology? Because one of the dangers sometimes is everything, you know, there's one contractor, a prime or something that dominates, and it crowds out some of that innovation. Where do you guys feel we're at with that?
I think this is a robust market, and this is a national advantage for us across our entire cyber industry ecosystem here. Whether we're looking at our endpoints at Department of Defense, but also operational technology, Internet of Things, et cetera. And then, of course, as you noted a minute ago, sir, working with the civilian sector on that. I think we have a rich ecosystem. We have, and I'll say this not only on cybersecurity, but cloud service providers and others. We have the best in the world, and I'll put them all day long up against whatever China and Russia can bring to the fight. And our job is to make sure we're applying the best services and best capabilities against where it's needed on our cyber terrain in the Department of Defense. But I feel confident about this, sir. General Skinner, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Senator, I think that the innovative spirit of the American public is alive and well. The innovative spirit of the Department of Defense is alive and well. And I think together we are ready, and we will continue to stay ready, and we are the best in the world.
Well, we'll send that demand signal out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This will be to both of you. I'll start with General Skinner first. Zero trust principles include segmenting networks and resources within an enterprise in a logical and consistent manner, and enforcing access and policy controls at segment and resource boundaries. The first Cybercom commander, General Alexander, famously claimed that the DoD has not one network, but rather more than 15,000 separate networks loosely coupled together. Do you agree that DoD's networks are not currently rationally segmented, and as many so-called cybersecurity service providers across all of its components who manage security operations logically, and CSSPs would be aligned with network segments and their mission threads would be standardized? Where are we on that? And I'm sure hopefully we corrected most of it.
Senator, I would offer the Department of Defense Information Network is a very complex environment. And the standards that Honorable Sherman puts out as a DoD CIO and the operational maneuver that U.S. Cyber Command does makes that less complex. And we are continuing on a day-to-day basis to make it less complex and more simple. And as we do the zero trust methodologies, and as we focus on the user and the data, we make it that much less complex and more secure.
Mr. Sherman, you want to take a shot at this?
Absolutely. So we've been segmented for a long time, and to your point that we now need to rationally segment. And as we move to what we call software-defined wide area networks, or SD-WANs, and making it less about hardware and less about organizations, but a rapidly adaptable software-based ecosystem where, again, the same principle applies. We're hindering the enemy's ability to move laterally across that network, but we do this in a logical manner consistent with this very large enterprise that General Skinner described. And it is indeed one of the key pillars of zero trust on networks and environment, we call it. It's the fifth pillar there, and it matters for other pieces too. But that's what Thunderdome is working on, we talked about earlier. And as we oversee our zero trust architecture, that's a key point, taking what General Alexander noted 10 plus years ago, but making this more rational now and where we can manage it and be very agile to adapt in a software-centric method to frustrate an enemy's ability to move laterally, sir.
Thank you. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just got a couple of questions. The first, and recognizing it's in an unclassified environment here, Mr. Sherman, how will cybersecurity maturity models certification process with regard to the DIB contractors, defense industrial base contractors, streamline compliance with the program's security requirements and processes? I mean, this is an area where if there's a challenge for all of us, it's in that connectivity between the defense industrial base and the DoDN itself.
Yes, sir. Taking this very seriously because our defense industrial base, as we were noting a moment ago, is our national advantage. And where cybersecurity is critical because of what the PRC and others are doing, we've got to make this understandable and usable by the defense industrial base. So moving from CMMC 1.0 circa 2021, which had 5 different levels, and it had an additional layer of controls DoD had put on top of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST controls. We took a step back under Deputy Secretary Hicks's leadership to review this and make it more understandable and executable to where we now, sir, have 3 levels and removing that extra layer of controls. And we have 110 controls that NIST put on there. So trying to put ourselves in the shoes of those companies, whether they be in South Dakota, sir, or Texas, or wherever they are, and say, how is this going to impact me, where we're not surrendering the ground on cybersecurity, but making it implementable in terms of, particularly for the small and medium companies. So we're in a position right now, this has taken us longer, frankly, than we wanted to have to do the review, but sir, measure twice, cut once. We want to do this correctly before it gets over to OMB, into rulemaking and public review. So we're committed to getting this right, but all the while, a lot of industry engagement, so this is understandable to the companies that are going to have to implement this, sir.
Thank you. General Skinner, I understand that DISA has initiated a pilot assessing new innovative commercial, or it's a pilot project that assesses new and innovative commercial active cybersecurity capabilities that are intended to protect the DoDN. How are those efforts going, and when do you think you will be able to expand the capabilities to protect the entire DoDN, hopefully in a successful way?
Senator, as I mentioned earlier, in the March time, about 2 weeks ago, we put the pilot on contract, and we're expecting within the next 6 months to have a good understanding of that the pilot's capabilities and whether it can scale. While we are doing that, we're not sitting on our laurels. We've also implemented this thing called cloud-based internet isolation, which is an innovative way of taking web traffic and moving it to the left, I'll say, into a sandbox to where we can actually check the traffic out to make sure that anything that's being downloaded does not have malware in it. We're about 3/4 of the way through the entire department that will be behind this. And that's actually not only improving our security, but also improving our user performance because some of the information is being discarded and then it's coming through the internet access points. So both from a user experience standpoint and a security standpoint, that's another innovative way that we are protecting our boundary and protecting our users.
Great, thank you. On behalf of the chairman, Senator Rosen.
Well, thank you, Senator Rounds. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you both being here to testify today. And so I'm going to just get right to it and talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, because we're going to be using it in some form or fashion as a cybersecurity solution. I mean, we're already doing it in some way, and it's going to continue to grow. So, Mr. Sherman, as you know, Senator Manchin already spoke about this. Our adversaries really could use AI in the future cyber attacks in the United States. We know it, including on our DoD networks. On the other hand, AI also has a great potential as a tool for the Department of Defense to hunt for malicious software, search for those irregular behaviors, if you will, that they could indicate a presence of an intruder posing a threat to our DoD system. So could you speak to how the Department of Defense is leveraging and learning about the advanced AI models to improve our own networks' intelligence, if you will, for cybersecurity defenses?